last 2 lessons, we learned how to use Glitch to help us experiment with Aframe. We learned about the 3D coordinate system and how to place simple shapes in the 3D space. In this lesson, we're going to step it up. We are going to understand the fundamental blueprint that Aframe is built upon, so you have the knowledge to create virtually anything that you want. Okay, let's start by going back to what Aframe is and where it came from. Aframe is a framework that uses Entity Component System Architecture, or an ECS for short. An ECS is like a box of Legos. The set of Legos itself is the framework, and the ECS is the little bumps and cavities that allow you to put the Legos together. You can then use these cavities and bumps to make endless models of Lego. That's exactly how Aframe works. The ECS architecture is made out of entities, components, and system. For this tutorial, we're just going to focus on entities and components. An entity is just an empty container. It does nothing else but keep things together. Components are reusable modules that defines what the entity looks like and what it can do. Not only do we need to specify what type of component we need, but we also need to specify the properties of that component. Okay, what does this look like in Aframe? First step, just to show you the syntax, let me just make some room in between these ascend tags and just add another A entity here. Okay, remember how we said that an entity is your container and we want to populate that container with components. Turns out, syntactically, this is exactly the same as adding an attribute to your HTML tags, and all the different properties of those components can be specified as if you're just writing inline CSS. Let's use arbitrary components just to show you exactly how the syntax goes. So say you've got arbitrary component called component1. Remember, you're just writing it as if you're writing an HTML attribute, and to specify the properties of these components, all you have to do is write it as if you're writing inline CSS. So component1, property1, colon value, and property2, colon value. If you want to add another component, it's really easy. You do exactly the same thing, except you just add a space. I'll just copy this so I don't have to type it again and change this to component2, property1, property2. Cool. So the syntax to create an entity is pretty damn easy. At this point, you're probably thinking, hey, why do I need to know all of this? We can already render and put together primitives. What's the difference? Turns out everything, and I mean everything, in between these ascend tags are entities with components under the hood. Even the primitives from our last lesson are just entities with predetermined components that's been wrapped up in nice HTML tags just to make it more appealing to beginners. Let me prove it to you. Let's rewrite the box primitive as an entity. Again, we're going to start with an empty entity. Now we want to populate this entity with components to determine what it looks like, its color, and its position. If you look at the docs, you can see that there's a thing called the geometry component that determines the shape of the entity. We're going to use the primitive property. This box. And I'm just going to show my output on the side. And look, like we said before, if you don't specify a position, it will just default at 0, 0, 0. So already we can see that there's a box forming here. So all we need to do now is specify everything else. Instead of color, we're going to use a component called material with the property color. Color, and I'm just going to make it exactly the same as this box. Color. So if you look down, look, the color is exactly the same now. And now all I'm going to do is I'm going to make the position exactly the same. Actually, you know what? I am going to make this red, so we can see that it's a different box, not the same one. If you look down, look, there's a red box underneath us. So position equals, I'm going to make the position exactly the same. And the reason why this is messed up is because I haven't added a closing tag. So it's assuming that all of these are a child component of this entity, which is not what we want. There we go. The only difference is that the original box made with a primitive is rotated slightly. Okay, but hold on a sec. This looks really familiar. We've specified here that we want to use a preset primitive of a box. So then why should we use a entity instead of a box when obviously writing a box is much shorter and takes way less effort? First of all, you have to understand that this primitive property is much different to this primitive tag. These primitives here act as a layer that abstracts an entity for convenience. It comes with default values and is predefined. However, the primitive property that's being used here in the geometry component is vastly different. Although it does come with predefined values like box and cylinder and spheres for convenience, you can also define this yourself. Later in the next videos, we're going to come to a point where we're going to be writing our own primitives. This way, developers can come in and define their own shapes, so then you're not restricted to just the basic box and cylinder. The primitives we're using here only act as a layer that abstracts an entity for convenience. So there we go, we've just proven that we can recreate any of these primitives and establish that everything in between the ascene tags are literally all entities under the hood. Thank you for making it this far to tutorial 3. You're doing really great. If you like what you see and you want to learn more, hit subscribe and I'll be uploading a new video every single week. Next week we'll be continuing on to learn animation. Also feel free to comment below if you have any questions or if you have any suggestions for me in terms of teaching or anything else you want, come say hi and I'll see you next week. Bye!